Let's talk a little bit about Tefillin and Chol Hamoed. There were some questions being asked around that today. So if you walk in our shul, some wearing Tefillin, some aren't. Some are asking whether they should be wearing, some are asking why they're not wearing. So here's a little bit on that. So the Gemara says, says something clear on Yom Tov and Shabbat. On Yom Tov and Shabbat, they're both considered an oat, a sign. Therefore, we have no need, we shouldn't put on tefillin, which is also considered a sign on those days, because those days are considered a sign between us and Hashem. We don't need another sign. Now, when it comes to Chol Hamoed, the Gemara doesn't talk about it. That's the question. Is Chol Hamoed a continuation of Yom Tov? Therefore, you don't need another sign and you shouldn't put on tefillin? Or is it different than Yom Tov? And therefore, you should put on tefillin. That's where the difference of opinions emerge. So there are three approaches. One is to wear tefillin, make a bracha. One is to not wear them at all. Another one is to wear tefillin, but not to make a bracha. So let's talk about those approaches. And then we'll talk about what the practical halacha is. So the view that says you should not put on tefillin, they view that Chol Hamoed is a continuation of Yom Tov. A few sources for this. The major laws of each holiday apply during Chol Hamoed. You can't eat chametz. You're still in a sukkah. It's a continuation of Yom Tov. Similarly, lots of labor is forbidden on these days. It's permitted in certain circumstances, but labor is categorically forbidden. So therefore, it's a continuation of Yom Tov. Now, the people who say you shouldn't put on tefillin have another reason that comes into play, and this is a Kabbalistic reason. And this is going to play an important piece for Sephardim and Hasidim. They go by this approach. Mari, letting you know, based on the Kabbalah. The Kabbalah, the Zohar says it's very strong words against those who wear tefillin. Like you should not wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed, according to the Zohar, the Kabbalah. The Beit Yosef on that says we don't have a clear statement on this in the Gemara. So therefore, the Beit Yosef, which is the Sephardic posek, he says therefore we should just follow what the Zohar says. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says in the Zohar, we shouldn't wear tefillin because the Zohar is something, the Kabbalistic text is something so strong to say against it. I'm going to take a step back again to our three general approaches. The first approach is you shouldn't put on tefillin because it's continuing Yom Tov and because of Kabbalah. The second approach is the other extreme, which is you should put it on with a bracha because labor might be forbidden on Chol Hamoed, but it's not from the Torah. The rabbis forbade it, according to many opinions, and therefore it's not really a continuation of Yom Tov. There's a separation, and therefore, because you don't have that Yom Tov oat, Chol Hamoed is distinct from Yom Tov, and therefore you should put on tefillin like you would on any other day with a bracha, with a blessing. Then you have an intermediate view, which is a compromise between the approaches. Is basically says put on tefillin, but don't make a bracha. Put on tefillin because it's perhaps not a continuation of Yom Tov. It's its own reality, and it's like any other day. But don't make a bracha because making a bracha is very serious too. And if we have some sort of doubt, we shouldn't make the bracha. So those are three approaches. Those are three general approaches. With a bracha, not at all. With a bracha, put them on, but without a bracha. So let's see what the halacha is like among the different communities. So for Sephardim, they follow the Beit Yosef, who said that we should follow the Kabbalah here, which says, don't put on tefillin. And it's just, in Eretz Yisrael, many follow the direction of the Beit Yosef, based on the Kabbalah. And that's why many in Eretz Yisrael don't put it on. I don't know, what would you say percentages of people? Afachad. Never seen. Okay. In Eretz Yisrael, they follow the Beit Yosef, who said, based on the Kabbalah, that you shouldn't put it on. Now, in Chutz La'aretz, and then Sephardim do that in Israel and in America. Hasidim do too. They follow this approach where you don't put on tefillin at all. Among different groups of Ashkenazim in America, there are different customs. Some follow the approach that you don't put it on at all. Some follow the approach that you should put it on and you put it on with a bracha. But there's a change. They say the bracha quietly. Why? So there's no machlok, no debate. They'll say that they're not making waves. So they'll say the bracha quietly. And then there are those who do the compromise. They'll put the tefillin on, but they won't make a bracha. And then there's one more piece added onto this, which some do, that they'll make a condition. They'll say, I'm putting on tefillin, I'm not making a bracha. If these tefillin are a mitzvah, I'm doing the mitzvah with these tefillin. But if they're not, then I'm wearing boxes. I'm not doing a mitzvah with them. And basically, the Mishnah Berurah says to do that. Why? Because he says, like, then you're not if they're a mitzvah, you're doing the mitzvah. If they're not, then you're not, and then you're not wearing a sign because you've defined it differently, not as a sign in your head. And you said it's not a mitzvah. And he says, then it's no longer an issue of you wearing tefillin when you're not commanded to, because you already have a sign. So those are the three main approaches among Ashkenazi community, among Ashkenazim in the diaspora, to not put it on at all. Many do it. Chaim shared that, like, from your experiences in shuls, like 2/3 do not put on tefillin. And then you have those who put on with a bracha. Those who do, they'll do it quietly, say the bracha, and then those who don't say the bracha, many times they'll do that condition where it's like, if this is a mitzvah, I'm getting the mitzvah. If not, then it's not. I don't have intention for it to be a mitzvah. There's different approaches.